Morning, guys. We're on Proverbs chapter 11, reading from verse 1 to 15. As we go through these 375 individual Proverbs from chapter 10, it's difficult to get sort of a continuity. So just take one or two and then just see which ones you can apply to your life or maybe use in your own situation. First one, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. And so they used to balance the scales and have a weight on the one side, and then they'd used to weigh their flour or whatever on the other side, and just until the weights were even. But for the dishonest people, they had dishonest weights, and so they'd have unequal weights. So for 50 kg, they'd maybe bring out a 45 kg. In Proverbs 20 verse 10, it says, unequal weights and unequal measures are both alike an abomination to the Lord. And so God's not happy with two sets of books, one for the tax man, one for this, and where we're ducking the system. And so let's just make sure that when we're dealing with your work, you're dealing honestly and dealing rightly. Verse 2, when pride comes, then comes dishonor, but with the humble there is wisdom. And so wisdom is with the right attitude. When you're humble and you don't think that you've got it all together, and then God and His Word can do something in your life. But as it says in Luke 14:11, for everyone who exalts himself will be humble, but he who humbles himself will be exalted. And so God will lift up the humble. And so let's let God do a work, but let's start with the right heart. Verse 3, the integrity of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them. And that's obvious. When you walk in crooked ways, eventually you're going to be destroyed by your own schemes, your own lies, your own deception. Verse 4, riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. And we see that over and over again, that there's a path that leads to prosperity and righteous and good living, and there's a path that leads to death. And so let's walk in God's ways, in the path that leads to life. Verse 5, the righteousness of the blameless will smooth his way, but the wicked will fall by his own wickedness. And there's again a repetition of, you can't have dishonest ways, lying, cheating, stealing, and not expecting the people around you who are caught up on that not to do the same thing for you. You're going to be caught up eventually in those same ways that you too are involved with. Verse 6, the righteousness of the upright will deliver them, but the treacherous will be caught by their own greed. When a wicked man dies, his expectation will perish, and the hope of strong men perishes. Because the wicked man is just putting his hope in this life and his treasures and whatever he can get in here and now. He's not thinking of the future when he dies, where he's going to spend eternity, etc., etc. Verse 8, the righteous is delivered from trouble, but the wicked takes his place. Or in another version, the wicked walks into it, or walks into trouble. And so when we're walking God's ways, we are avoiding trouble. When we're walking in sin, we're going to land up walking into trouble. Just like Haman, he ended up being hung by the same gallows that he had set up for Mordecai. Esther 7 verse 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows which he had prepared for Mordecai. The king's anger subsided. And so don't think that you're going to be caught out by the same rules that you treat, and the same thing, principles that you treat others with. Verse 9, with his mouth the godless man destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge the righteous will be delivered. The tongue is deceitfully, it just causes a lot of destruction. Verse 10, when it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there's joyful shouting. So either way, people are happy to see the humble and the righteous do well, and they're also happy to see the wicked man and the evil man die. So either way, the city rejoices. Verse 11, by the blessing of the upright a city is exalted, by the mouth of the wicked it is torn down. He who despises or belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding keeps silent. And so there's times to talk, there's times to rebuke, there's times to correct, and we must do that. We must speak up for the truth, we must stand for the truth. But there's also times to keep quiet, and that's where the wisdom comes in. When do we learn to not say anything? Jesus often kept quiet. He didn't answer every question. And so there's times where we need to remain silent. We don't have to give our opinion. We don't have to tell someone that they're looking bad, or in this situation. There's wisdom in holding your tongue. Verse 13, he who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy conceals a matter. So someone comes to you with a private issue and confides in you. You don't want to be the talebearer. You don't want to be the gossiper and goes out and tells someone else. They've come to you in confidence, and that's just a typical example of when we must learn to hold our tongue and not go and gossip about that matter. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips. This is Proverbs 10:18. And whoever utters slander is a fool. The gossiper, the slanderer is a fool. But someone who learns to hold his tongue is the wise one. Verse 14, where is there no guidance? Where there is no guidance, his people fail, but in the abundance of counselors there is victory. Important one. Don't rush into decisions. You've got a big decision to make. Gather people around you who you know are wise, people who have been through these situations. Listen to their advice. It doesn't have to take it all, but listen to the advice of others in abundance of counselors. God wants us to get input from other people and to take their advice and then weigh up what they have to say. We don't know everything. People have been through stuff that they can help us through, and so we need to look for abundance of counselors. Last one, he who is a guarantee for a stranger will surely suffer for it, but he who hates being a guarantee is secure. It's wisdom not to stand surety for someone you don't know. You put your house up, let them go to the bank, tell them, no, you can take my house, but you don't even know that person. That's not wise. And so there's many different ways that we can look at wisdom.